Welcome to episode number 2 of the Next Wave podcast with the
Episode
Wavy
dos.
Gang crew. There you go.
Wavy gang.
I am your co-host, Charles. What am I? I'm a former collegiate athlete, former EMT, a lot of big background in healthcare. Why don't you guys introduce yourself again? Boys.
Well, I am
Hey, I'm
Tyler.
Ryan.
God damn it. No. All right. I'm Tyler, also co-host. We're getting after it. Healthcare background as well, physiologist, group training, hit training, performance training, sports specific training. We try to do it all, baby.
Bang, Ryan.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan. I'm the third leg, as you know, the bigger one. And I am the producer of the Wavy Gang podcast. And we will be editing and doing all the cool stuff to it.
Next Wave crew. Here we go. All right. So what's been going on, fellas, since the last time we talked on this?
Oh man, Chuck, we played a lot of golf. We
did play a lot of golf, and by a lot of golf, we played one round. No, that's not true. I forgot about, but I'm sorry. You're right.
Hey, the way y'all play golf, that is a lot of golf.
Ryan, I'm pretty sure we shot around the same score last time we played. So
it was pretty close.
The dog was barking.
Dog was barking for everybody.
Sun was on my ball.
Yeah, your feet. your dogs were barking. Your dogs were barking on that hot day. That was for sure.
Yeah.
The boy's shoe soles were melting.
There you go. My feet hurt, dude. Come on. That's the old guy saying my dogs are barking. I say that all the time.
My dogs are barking. But clodhoppers is another one. A lot of old people say that one too. Got to get my clodhoppers on.
I've never heard that one.
Oh, I hear that too much. I hear that way too often.
But you work with a lot of old people. That's why. A bunch of Jerrys.
Oh, yeah. Turn those Jerrys into MJs,
Yeah.
Hey, honestly, though, I got this one dude, 78, just getting after it. He's back on his mountain bike. He'll run at like a 9-minute mile pace on the treadmill for a little bit.
Dude, that's faster than me.
He'll hold a plank for a minute. I mean, he does it all, baby. 78 years old. It's pretty cool.
Can you do 50 squats in 3 weeks?
He'll
Foreshadowing.
He's one of those you tell him do 5 sets of 10 and he'll just do 50 straight, You're like, calm down, bro. Calm down.
You need that rest period for a reason, bro.
I always say this, the rest period is just as important as your moving period. You can't rush these things.
Facts. Big facts. So back to golf. What do you think of Butler? That was your first time there, right?
Butler's cool, man. I mean, you can play pretty quick. You can play with people like we did. We won best ball, Chuck and I doing our thing.
Played 2 guys that were doing coke.
Oh, they were doing probably 3 or 4 different things.
Yeah, but that was fun.
How old are these guys?
They're in their 20s.
Yeah,
maybe maybe 27.
So just looking to have fun, not really competitive.
Oh, they had no shoes on. They had no shirt on.
So me and Chuck. Like that?
So Butler, you never played a Butler pitch and putt?
Me, no, I've never heard of it.
So it's a par 3 9-hole course, and it's like in the center of downtown Austin, and it's literally like a place that literally says no shoes, no shirt, no problem, one of those places. And like they have a bar there. They have like a little putting green. They got some TVs in their outdoor area, and you can play night golf there. But it's really just like a place that anybody could go have fun. The longest hole is like 100 yards.
Okay,
so
yeah,
it's for
give
anybody.
Or take. It's right there. You got like 3 or 4 clubs. That's all you're using.
That's still a fun time, though.
For sure.
No, yeah, it's great. It's good to work on your short game and irons for sure. And
definitely.
You save a lot of golf balls.
You definitely do. And we smoked those guys.
Oh yeah. And they were like, yeah, we hit a hole in one like 2 weeks ago here. Like, oh yeah, okay.
And I'm like, I think that's the cocaine talking.
Like, what kind of holes are we hitting?
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, you gotta tell them about your homeless man encounter that you
Homeless
told me
man. When
This is but at Butler, you said you were playing with your buddy.
the meth head. Dude, I was playing there one time with the guy that did my tattoos, and there's a train track right next to it up on a hill, and then it's like this like valley of the like where like the fairways are for like a couple holes, and all of a sudden we just see this guy come from the street on the other side, run in front of everybody, like looking around spastically, and then runs up into the trains. And my buddy just yells. He's like, "Tweaker, tweaker, 19." Like,
He's running through like 3 fairways.
yeah, dude. This guy, dude, he
just wanted to play Frogger. He's a big fan.
Yeah, that's a place to do it. Most of those people don't know where they're hitting the ball, so it's real brave.
Real brave. He didn't even know where he was, honestly.
No, he did not.
Probably you did like what, 8 backhand springs or
He did a couple flips in there. I saw little loop-de-doos, you know?
hey, those guys, they're going through something different. I remember going down 6th Street and this dude was sitting on the street, like sitting on the curb, and he's got a Time magazine and it's got some famous person's face on it. And he's drawing X's all over the eyes and his mouth. And he's like tiny little X's over his entire face. And he turns and looks at me and he's like, "Isn't my art beautiful?" He's like, "I'm trying to be a tattoo artist one day." And there's just X's all over the guy's face. And I'm like,
yeah, that's
I gotta handle this gracefully.
You have to do that with every single homeless person, though.
Like, he asked me for money for sure.
Yeah, that's classic schizophrenia. Sorry, bud.
He had a couple face tats and he could not keep his eyes still. Like, he could not maintain eye contact by any means. It was interesting time for 21-year-old Tyler to figure this situation out.
I bet.
And then I actually told him, like, we had that 21-year-old heart-to-heart knowledge of, hey, man, I'm broke just like you. We got to dig ourselves out of this hole.
I bet that made him feel a lot better.
No shot.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
He probably forgot about it in like 15 seconds anyway, because he took off sprinting down the road, holding his pins and markers and his magazines.
Off to tattoo somebody.
Hopefully he's got his own shop now and he's all clean.
That would be sweet. I wish nothing but the best for him. All right. Well, what do you say we get into this story?
Let's get right to it. Episode 2.
What you got for us, dude?
We got episode 2. We're covering transverse process fracture with Austin Forkner. Pretty big wreck within the Supercross races that took place in Dallas at AT&T Stadium, Arlington. This was a pretty interesting, controversial, and performance topic because there's a lot of things that took place that could have led up to why he crashed. And also there's some questions on whether he's going to continue racing too. So nothing that Austin Forkner is taking lightly right now.
Yeah, I saw a lot of speculation just on the few clips that I saw that he's retiring. And from what I know, he's still pretty, I don't know how long he's been doing it professionally. I didn't do a ton of research on that part, but I saw that like everybody's kind of shocked and it really sucks for him because it sounded like his career was really kind of just taking off.
He's 25 years old and he's battled through multiple injuries leading up to. So we'll go over his background here as well. Ryan, did you see the videos as also, and did you get anything from that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the videos, and it's just kind of what happens in the sport of motocross. You just catch something or hit a bad lip or something happens, and it can be really bad in a couple seconds. So that's kind of how it happened for him. So unfortunate, but that's how the sport is.
And for our motocross riders, we also refer to that as casing it. So if you're not familiar, casing it is when you either come up short on the rhythm section or you really come up short and you can load the bike in the wrong directions and have some injuries that are bound to take place just due to the force production. And also you typically can get thrown off the bike pretty quickly with how fast you're going too.
I'm glad you mentioned that because when the guy talked about the rhythm section and casing it in the video, I was like, I have no idea what any of that means.
Did you watch the one with Ryan Villapoto?
Nah, dude, I don't know. It was one of the YouTube ones. It was like two guys talking about it.
Yeah, that was probably Ricky Carmichael and Ryan Villapoto. They talk about more the technicality of his performance and why he missed the lip
Yeah, yeah.
and the way he landed and why he landed the way he did. So it's a good little listen if you want to kind of brush up on riding mechanics and how to enter a jump with proper speed and what to anticipate from then.
Yeah, I kind of figured out what the rhythm section was just by them talking through it. Like it makes sense with that, but I still didn't quite understand what casing it meant. But
Yeah,
I'm
and
not the motocross guy of the group.
they were saying too, this track at AT&T Stadium in Dallas was one of the more risky because there was multiple times where guys just got way out of rhythm or also had a crash or they lost time due to the rigor of what to expect within the rhythm section. A lot of guys either had to slow way down or really manipulate their line just so they could prevent falling or prevent an injury, unfortunately, like Austin Forkner sustained. But yeah, let's go over a little bit more on Austin Forkner's background, his upbringing, and where we're at today. Yeah, Austin Forkner, he actually started riding when he was 5 years old. I can relate to this a little bit. I started when I was very young, growing up around motocross. My dad racing around through Texas series and just being around motocross all the time. My cousin also raced as well. And we go to places like Nakona and Mosier Valley, Village Creek. My dad also raced at Mammoth and Freestone. I actually had my first race at Tyler in the Swan Cycle Park there. So that's where I got my first plaque too. I placed 22nd out of 50 plus riders. So,
They gave you a participation trophy?
oh yeah, I got a plaque from that bad boy.
Boo.
Hey, I'll say that track was pretty tough for like an entry level race. So I'm not gonna lie, my heart was racing.
Bro, good on you for finishing. I would not trust myself. I would have killed myself if I tried motocross. Like that's not. I'm not good on a bike. That's not
Dude,
my thing.
it's like 5 laps, and I was 7 years old. I mean,
Well, how
my
fast are
arm.
your dirt bikes going at that age?
Um, Man, I don't think you're really going over. You're definitely
20.
not touching 40 miles an hour. You could probably get up to 30, but you're probably really ranging anywhere from like Ryan said, like 5 to 20 miles an hour. But everything seems like it's in fast forward at that
Yeah.
stage when you're just really getting into the riding scene. But going back to Austin, he's a Mizzou native out of Richards, Missouri. That's where he was born. They also refer to him as the farmer. That could possibly root back because his mom was actually a barrel racer with horses and rodeo setting. And his dad was also a motocross rider, so I'm sure that had a huge influence on him getting into the sport, and them competing within rodeo and motocross and also just recreation really showed how they supported him, getting him into the sport initially. So yeah, early stages, he started at 5 years old. He started really getting hooked in when he won the Show Me series, which is a series in Missouri, a motocross series. Takes place in the fall. And then he really started taking off when he won his first championship series at the age of 7 and 8 years old. He won his first amateur national series in Ponca City, which is Oklahoma, but I'm actually not sure if it's Ponca or Ponca. I think it's Ponca City. Ponca City.
I have no idea.
He finished in the
first time.
We'll go with the first one. And if anybody has any comments, please correct us. Feel free.
It's pronounced Panka.
Poncha.
Poncha.
It's just a random H in there.
Ponkaya.
Like Manchaca in Austin, Manchek.
It's actually just Manchac. Yeah.
Yeah, people have no idea. Like if you're not from Austin or been through the Austin area, when you say Manchek, they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It's like I don't even know where this is, and you're like, "We're literally in Manchek right now." They're like, "This isn't Manchaca?" Like,
no,
man.
Anytime I hear Chaka, I think of Land of the Lost with Will Ferrell. Do you remember his little monkey boy or whatever? Chaka, bad Chaka.
Hey, if you don't make it, it's your own damn fault. I actually say that quite a bit sometimes in my head. It lives rent free in my brain.
Damn fault.
It's your own damn fault, which is a pretty big line in that movie.
It is. He says it so many times.
And also the do you believe in love after love?
Oh yeah.
Hey man, that's
that movie's underrated.
That movie is kind of underrated. This is a big middle school movie where you're just trying to see all the movies you can so you can talk about it at lunch, and then ends up being a banger.
Best part is the ending when he writes a book and it's called Matt Lauer Can Suck It.
That aged well.
That's pretty good. No, that movie actually reminded me of my high school physics teacher. He always had those photos that had the motivational sayings. It was like, if you don't make the jump, then jump freaking harder. Or like, something just off the cuff where it's pretty straightforward. It's like, well, if you miss it, don't suck.
Yeah, it's those dumb motivational. Yeah, they're everywhere. There's always at least one teacher with a bunch of them, and it usually is a science teacher.
And shout out to Coach Hall. He laid on a bed of nails, and we also had an interesting conversation recently to help with muscle soreness. You should start rubbing banana peels so potassium can get absorbed into your skin to help with inflammation. So if y'all want to start trying rubbing banana peels on your knees, get after it. We'll see what happens. We could do a case study on this longitudinal study and see if we get any results. So
that's wild. I mean, my shoulder's been hurting for 5 months. So
get those banana peels, start rubbing them.
All right. I got a whole bunch right now.
Anyways, going back to Forkner. So the major races he won when he was 7 and 8 is, first amateur national series in Ponca City, finishing in the top 10 in both the 7-year-old class and also the 8-year-old class, 50cc. So this is the little bikes you see in Supercross, where it's all the young guys on the KTMs, which is always fun to watch. It's cool to see little guys just rip like that or just eat shit, unfortunately. And hopefully none of them get hurt, but it's always cool to see these guys learn too. But he started winning that early on, and you can really tell the difference in where kids are at when you start to see the guys that win, they're winning by probably like 2 minutes, and that's like pretty major and
Yeah, he's
race.
balling.
Yeah, and race setting, But Ryan, do you remember any of the times when Dad was racing too?
I don't remember much like actually being at a track. I mean, I'm mainly remember us just going for rides, and I mean that was always fun, and I was learning, but I never raced like you did. And if I was you, I would say I would have placed 22 out of like 122, but that's just me.
Yeah. How did the first time you rode a motorcycle go?
Oh, it was great. When you first learn, they always tell you to just gas it, right? So that's what I did. I just gassed it and I hit a fence.
Yeah, he went full throttle, and I think my mom had like 4 heart attacks at the time.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Was it a fence or a barn?
It was a fence. It was one of those metal fences.
Yeah, he went straight into that thing, and I was like, Ryan, don't fuck my bike up. It's laid over, and the throttle's in the ground, and the back wheel's just full throttle while the bike's on the ground. It was good times.
And then like the next day, I go out trying to do it again, and I burned my leg, like 3rd-degree burn on on like a metal piece of the bike.
Yep. You're riding in shorts, baby. That's what'll do it.
Just a rough start to your riding career, Ryan.
Yeah, gotta start somewhere. And then once everybody stopped racing, I never saw a bike really again.
Hey, like if my mom had a heart attack at that point when Ryan ran into the fence, my first ever practice was at Mosier Valley. And, I've been playing MX versus ATV and, those freestyle games on PS2. And I've always grown up watching guys race, and guys like Jeremy McGrath and Kevin Windham and Chad Reed and Ricky Carmichael. And like we said, Villapoto before. And I was like, you know what? I got to go big. Like my first practice run, I got like no air. First practice lap, like 0 air. I'm like, well, I'm weak as hell. Like I can't be doing this, And second lap, I'm like heading up to this tabletop, and it's maybe 10 to 15 feet in length. And, I was watching my dad's class. They were all clearing them, like easy landing, just like 20 feet of air, just clearing the whole tabletop. So I'm like, I got to be able to do that too. So I full throttle this thing after my first lap, and I send the bike up in the air, and I realize I'm up in the air like way too high. I'm like hot rodding this thing. Shout out to Andy Sandberg, where I look over in the crowd and my bike is flying away from me and I'm in the air. And then as I land, I actually land on top of my bike and I roll and my bike's rolling. And I'm just worried about getting my bike out of the track, because I was like, I got a brand new bike. I don't want anybody run it over. I'm not even worried about me getting run over because I'm right at the base of the landing. And I look up and everybody's like, oh shit. And I see my dad sprinting to me as fast as he can in motocross boots, at least. So you just kind of imagine how fast he's running there. But he's booking it, to say the least. And I'm just, scrambling to get my bike up. And then I'm trying to get back on and ride. And he's like, no, you got to get off the track. And I'm like, oh, okay. Riding my bike over to the car. I got a couple scratches on the plastics. And I start taking my gear off just to make sure, I'm good. No broken bones, nothing. And then I look down at my right hip and I have like this 4-inch gash where all I can see is blood and a little bit of white.
Oh, dude.
So I could actually see my hip bone. I can see part of my pelvis on the side.
It's like, yeah,
and
you're done.
I remember looking up and saying, am I going to die? And I don't even know what kind of conversations my mom and dad had, but you could only imagine.
Yeah. I feel like we've all had a moment in our sporting careers, whether it's motocross, baseball, football, whatever, where we've had our parents sprint onto the field to check on us as kids.
Oh yeah. And like this was probably good enough to where I should have had stitches. And we butterfly stitched that baby and we put band-aids over it for maybe like 2 to 3 weeks. And it worked.
You just took it
But
like a champ, dude.
butterfly stitch. I'm like sitting in first grade with this huge white patch just on my side.
Attaboy.
Coolest kid in
Just
school.
Chicks
Like-
dig that, dude.
Like 4 inches by 6 inches of a patch on my side, and just like not trying to get it infected for probably 2 months.
Right.
Still got the scar. But we made it. We're good. I did still race after that and still practice, but what
That's
a heck
what
of a
matters. As
first
long as you
practice run.
Yeah, as long as you get back on the bike, that's what matters.
We got back on the bike. But yeah, Chuck, did you ever race or ride?
No, I never did anything like that. Closest thing I ever got to that was my grandpa had a go-kart at his house, and he used to have he used to have a tomato garden. And then as soon as he let me ride the go-kart, the tomato garden was destroyed. I destroyed every single tomato. Like I ran through it, and he was, oh, dude. That's one of the few times that man ever got mad at me. He didn't get mad at me very often, but I destroyed his tomatoes. I was doing like wheelies and shit. Like, I mean, not wheelies, but
Destroyed
donuts.
the tomato garden.
Oh, he was so mad. He was so mad. I thought it was hilarious.
Chuck invasion with tomatoes.
It's
It's just chucking a go-kart. It's just chucking a go-kart.
It's just, yeah, exactly. All right.
Hey, go-karts were a big thing back then, and those things would flip like all the time if you cut those turns too quick. I remember riding in those with my uncles growing up too. We always had these like street bike helmets on while we raced them, or maybe not race, but we would make tracks in the backyard and things like that.
For sure.
Couple acres to work with, and we'd always dig bike tracks and stuff like that with a tiller and till the land up, build some jumps, and see how fast we could hit them, as kids do.
Why not, dude? You got nothing better to do.
Summer days with
Might as
no
well
media,
Might as
no
well send it.
PlayStation,
Yeah.
no phones. Like, we're going to build a jump and we're going to hit this thing as hard as we can.
Yeah. Might as well send it and hurt yourself. Why not?
Fuck around and find out.
All right. Tell me more about Austin Forkner.
But yeah, going back to Forkner, we stated his dad liked to ride motocross and his mom was a barrel racer. So their competitive nature naturally showed support with him through the process. And he became a national rider, winning 2 national titles at Loretta Lynn, which is a well-known place that holds series races and title races for motocross. And he won those in 2010. And following after that, 2010 was when he first officially was sponsored by Kawasaki's Team Green amateur team as a factory rider. So his parents supported him all the way up until 2010, like out of pocket, paying for equipment and maintenance and, just different protective gear, travel, getting him to the races and keeping him healthy at the same time, which is a lot of investment on motocross and supercross. It takes time and a lot of support from a lot of different angles to be able to do that as a kid. So I'm fortunate enough that me and Ryan were able to experience that so young too. And just as Forkner was growing up, he just had a little more success, which is good for him.
It's okay.
2010, becoming Kawasaki's Team Green amateur team member as a factory rider, which is kind of funny that he switches to Kawasaki right after winning those 2 titles in Loretta Lynn in 2010, because he rode Suzuki winning both of those. So switching makes is kind of a big deal in the sport. So it's I think it was a marketing tactic by Kawasaki to be like, hey, we got to switch this guy over to Suzuki now. And this is the 85cc class. So he's still super young at the time. Being able to be a team rider on an 85 is a big deal.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think of Mick Schumacher. Do you guys know who that is?
No, break down Mick a little bit.
Do you know who he is, Ryan?
I don't. The only Schumachers I know are the baseball ones.
Okay. Well, or Michael Schumacher, or was it Mick? Oh, I forget. One's the dad, one's the son. I can't believe I'm mixing it up. I think it was Michael is the dad. He's the most famous one. He was an F1 driver, right? And I forget who he came up with and who he started racing with, but they had a good car and they were winning quite a bit. But he switched to Ferrari, and Ferrari this year, obviously Ferrari is a huge name in the sport of F1, right? They are the most famous team. They're the most famous logo. Like everybody knows the brand of Ferrari. But for whatever reason, this year and the years that he was with them, or at least starting out, their car was terrible. They weren't placing where they needed to place. And it just kind of, what you just said kind of reminded me of that. He went somewhere else, but it was kind of like a project for him. He wanted to be challenged a little bit more to make a car like himself. And he ended up winning the F1 title eventually with Ferrari. So I probably missed that story up a little bit, but the documentary on Netflix about him is really good.
And it's pretty interesting you say that too, because regardless of the make of the bike, he still continued to place 13th and first while riding Kawasaki on the 85 in 2011, that following year. So he still ended up winning, even though he was riding Kawasaki, switching to Suzuki or from Suzuki. And he actually still currently rides with Kawasaki and Monster Energy in his most recent races. But beforehand, he actually rode Cobra, which those used to be some bad MFers back then. Those were pretty quick on those little bitty bikes. And then there was documentation that he rode OTH, which I have no idea what OTH is. I've been trying to figure it out. I asked my dad. He has not been able to figure that one out either. So that could have been an experiment too, because he rode that and got like 22nd or 21st. And then he switched immediately back to Suzuki. So maybe that could have been a little experiment too. If anybody knows OTH or anything on it, feel free to comment or let us know, because I would love to know. I've been trying to figure that shit out for a little bit now.
I couldn't tell you. No idea.
No, and I've seen other things. It's like over the hill, over the hump, and like so many different things, and I still can't find it. So OTH, if you know what it is, let me know.
Over the hill and over the hump. That makes me think of it's like a beginning of a Hobbit poem in the Lord of the Rings.
Or like an elder birthday or something like that. But yeah, after finishing first in his last 3 series at Loretta Lynn in 2014 and 2015, he finished first in the classes of the Super Mini 2 and the Schoolboy 2, which means that's classes ages 13 to 16. So that's still, they're not necessarily pro quite yet. And then he also won 250B, which is also intermediate and leading up to going pro. And he actually wrapped up his amateur career with wins in Daytona and Freestone, which Freestone's actually in Wortham, Texas. So up there with Daytona, those are pretty notable tracks within motocross still today. Those are major races that they still, Freestone, I believe, holds races almost every weekend. So if you're interested and want to get into the sport, look up Freestone in Wortham, Texas. My dad raced there too. And he actually got trophies from there as well. So just southeast of Dallas, and then it's southwest of Tyler, I believe, and east of Hillsboro. So not too far out from the Dallas area. And
Google
going
it.
back to yeah, no, seriously, it's within the area, not too bad. But within his pro debut, he finished 4th, and he was right there neck and neck with all the veterans. So that's pretty major respect early on as a rookie, and being able to compete like that quick is something that you don't see too often.
Yeah, that's very impressive when a rookie in any sport makes their pro debut and they can keep up with the
It's
big
right up
dogs
there
like
with the
that.
best of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And he actually ended up battling for Rookie of the Year for his first pro season, finishing also 4th in standings, which was the highest a rookie had ever finished. And that was in 2016. I'm not sure if that's still the highest, but very notable in his journey for sure.
Wait, hang on. What do you mean? You said he battled for Rookie of the Year, but he finished 4th in the standings, and that's the highest a rookie ever finished?
Yeah, so he actually ended up receiving Rookie of the Year in his first pro season, when overall he finished 4th in the standings.
Oh,
So
I see what you're saying.
that's, yeah, still compared to the veterans and guys like that, and that had been the highest a rookie had ever finished.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh, no worries. And then kind of throughout his career, he's battled adversity, and he's also notched multiple successes under his belt, and multiple injuries in addition to the one that we're going to discuss a little bit more today. In 2020, he's placed 3rd in the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship for the 250 SX West. 2016, he placed 4th in the AMA Pro Motocross Championship for 250 as well. And then 2019, he also placed 3rd in the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship in the 250 SX class also. And then he has one career AMA Pro Motocross Championship 250 win. So he's been around the sport for some good time and has earned some respect for the most part.
Yeah, it sounds like he's had quite a bit of success in the sport.
So he had total, I believe right now he has 4 career Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship 250X SX class West wins. It's a mouthful. And
Yes, it is.
SX, I've always struggled to say SX in
That's okay.
in unison, but he is actually 6th on the all-time 250 SX East wins list. And in 2016, he was the Pro Motocross 250 class Rookie of the Year, like we talked about earlier.
Woo!
So he's been around, he's been around the sport. Dude. He's got some respect. People like to follow him. People like to root for him. He knows what he's doing. He likes to go fast. And
I like to go fast.
Sometimes you got to go fast. Sometimes you got to go slow.
I want to go fast.
But you know what they say, if you ain't first, you're last.
Exactly.
Back to Will Ferrell.
Of course.
But yeah, we're mainly going to discuss the crash he sustained in Supercross in Dallas. He sustained an L3 and L4 transverse process fracture and a scapular fracture on the right side. And it's kind of putting question marks right now on continuing his career at the young age of 25. So we're going to get into some emergency tips and what they probably did and what they probably should have done. Because if you've seen the video, oh my goodness. Like,
yeah, there's
what are we doing here?
Questionable stuff that the health team did. Do you know about the race leading up to the crash? What was going on, T-Hole?
So yeah, within the crash, he actually had an issue with his contact lens. His contact lens got kind of stuck or like jammed in his eye. So he's kind of squinting and like trying to make do. He said this was over 5 to 6 minutes of trying to like really get his eyes locked in. And he's rooting this back to maybe his depth perception was off leading up to the crash, which, I mean, if you got something in your eye and you're moving that quick and trying to read lines and being able to get in good rhythm throughout the race, that's something that we all don't want to deal with. So, I mean, that's definitely something notable that we should
Yeah.
take account of. Because
Yeah.
if you can't see and you're moving a machine pretty quick, and you got to be able to shift and move and mobilize and control everything you're doing, it's just another variable that puts a strain on everything else.
Yeah, I mean that's entirely possible that is why he crashed. What do you know what place he was in, how the race was going for him other than that?
Yeah, he's actually leading the 250 main event. So I mean,
Oh, damn, so he was competing for first place at that point. Damn, that sucks.
he was trying to win the damn thing.
Since I am not a motocross guy, Ryan or T-Hole, why don't you one of you guys break down the crash and kind of tell me why it happened or what happened at that moment?
Yeah, kind of going back to the contact being into play a little bit and it being tough to see. We talk about casing it and losing rhythm. This rhythm section, not an easy one by any means. And he comes in actually super hot. Like you can tell he's trying to like lock this in and win it. About midway through the rhythm section, as he goes to land, his back wheel actually clips the very lip of the jump. And I believe he was trying to double. So like within motocross, if you have one jump in a row, you have two jumps in a row. If you clear both of them, that's a double. If you have three jumps in a row, you clear all three of them, that's a triple. If you have four in a row, that's a quad. And it's pretty tough to do, but it can be done. And as he clips that lip at the end of the jump, he starts to immediately lose control. And they said from previous injuries, he started losing grip, and the bike literally flung him off the track and onto the concrete, where he landed kind of on his almost mid-back scapula, which almost looked like he was going to land on his head, which is a scary sight.
What do you mean from previous injuries? That he was slipping from previous injuries?
They said he didn't have a whole lot of grip strength at the time.
Oh,
from
okay.
Previous injuries. So when he hit that lip going at the velocity that he was going,
he wasn't able to hold on.
Yeah, slungshot his body off the bike and off the track onto the concrete, where he slid and hit the wall. And they said he pretty much, like, if you watch the video, he's laying into the wall, not moving at all.
Yeah, and that was the one thing too that I saw that had some controversy. Maybe you guys can clear it up for me a little bit. At that track, he lands on concrete. There's no dirt.
Oh, yeah.
There's no dirt. There's nothing. And the big motocross guys, whoever, I forgot who I was watching, but it was somebody on YouTube. They're talking about possibly putting dirt on all the concrete area so it's a softer landing. And I'm like, why wouldn't they do that before something like this happens? Why wouldn't you think to do that?
Or something that could at least brace that kind of impact.
I mean, just landing on concrete on your head, like Jesus.
And then you got the OG guys saying, well, we all raced on concrete, so he can do it too.
It's like it doesn't have to be that way.
It's like, yeah, it's like football. It's like, we have all these new helmets now that can help protect the brain and the skull and reduce trauma. But hey, remember when we wore those bike air helmets?
Yeah. You're soft.
They don't make these kids like they used to.
So is that pretty normal though at motocross tracks? Is there a lot of concrete on the edges like that?
There can be. I've actually witnessed a arena cross race, which is where sometimes they'll race in either a basketball arena or hockey arena. So it's a little more of an intimate setting for a race. Sometimes there's no room for failure at all. And I've seen a bike go shot into the stands after a turn. So it's a good thing there was some space there, at least, so he didn't land on somebody or land in the bleachers or run
Might have
right
been
into a concrete wall.
Might have been a softer landing if he landed on someone.
Arguably could have been, but it is pretty common to see like concrete on the side of the jumps, especially in a stadium like AT&T or something bigger like that. I know like Anaheim where the Angels play, um, like Daytona, some of those places might have grass to the side or something like that, which would have been way better for this situation. But when they're more indoor, like Supercross for AT&T, you'll see concrete majority of the time.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that cleared some things up for me. I appreciate that. Let's see. So yeah, when he hits that concrete, I thought he was going to break his neck, and I thought he was going to have a severe head injury. Honestly, that's what most people I think thought.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like as he's in the air, I'm like, oh, like I'm already thinking cervical injury, thoracic injury, shoulder injury, the way he lands.
Well, he just looks like a rag doll, dude. He's just floating through the air, just looking like a rag doll. It looked bad. It really did.
Almost looked like a video game. It didn't look real for the most part. Which was the scarier part about it. You don't see people fly through the air like that.
For sure.
And he actually, he did fracture his scapula. So in that area he landed, he still injured that area too. But the impact, the way he landed affected a little bit more than just that area too.
Right. So let me ask you guys this before I get into, the emergency stuff. What would you guys do if you're the emergency team in that situation? You see him, you see that wreck, you walk up to him. What are you guys doing?
Ryan, what you got?
Well, first, I wanted to add that his previous injury, he broke his collarbone. So I guess that does kind of go with grip a little bit.
Grip strength goes hand in hand with shoulder strength there too. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And in the highlights, you can see like every now and then on a turn or something, he's almost like losing it already. Before he hits this jump, there's like maybe a few other times where you can see him wobbling or losing his grip already. But that could also be losing his contact. Vision is super important.
Yeah.
That's what we call getting a little squirrely.
Yeah. If I was the EMT, I definitely wouldn't have him stand up right away. I'm not the expert, but I would make sure to assess how bad it is and make sure everything's in place. And
are you gonna do that? You gonna poke him? What are you gonna do?
I wouldn't poke him.
That's okay. Tyler?
So I would just make sure, like, one, he's breathing and he's either responsive or like what his status is, and maintain at least stability for his system. I would 100% think like if they're putting a neck brace on him, like the collar on him, that they would get the stretcher out too. But, they stand him up, which is like, if you put the collar on his neck, why in the hell are we standing him up and having him walk off if you think there's going to be some sort of fracture or additional injury that could potentially get worse upon standing up? So from all safety precautions, like, let's do the diligence first before jumping all the way and skipping maybe 3, 4, or 5 steps.
Yeah, so I completely agree. So yeah, that's the first thing. That was the first thing I said to you whenever you told me about this injury. You told me it was a spinal injury, and then you told me that he walked off, and I'm like, why the hell is this guy walking? Why are they letting him walk? That makes no sense to me at all, coming from an emergency medicine standpoint. And I was just making sure that I wasn't insane. I was looking at comments and I was looking at everybody else and people saying that they were health professionals as well, all outraged at what they did to it. They're like, I don't understand what that team was doing. It doesn't
So
make
many
any
people
sense.
commenting.
Doesn't make any sense. But you guys
No sense.
both nailed it. So the very first thing you want to do when you get to a situation like that, where you suspect a neck, back, head injury, anything like that that's serious, you want to stabilize the spine as much as you can. Luckily, I'm pretty sure he landed on his back, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So landed on his back with the full-on helmet on. So what you want to do is, if he is awake, you can kind of instruct him to, if his head's to the side, just kind of maybe put his head in line. You just want to get his spine in line with everything, his head in line with the spine, and then do spinal motion restriction on that thing. You have somebody hold C-spine. So somebody's holding his head just perfectly still and calming him down and reminding him not to move. Because that's the main thing. Because if you have a spinal injury, no matter where it is, whether it's in the neck, the thoracic region, or the lumbar region, or even the sacral or whatever, any extra movement can cause even more damage, even permanent damage, even paralysis, even if it's not already present.
And that's minimizing rotation as much as possible.
You're minimizing movement. You don't want him to move at all, no matter any kind of movement. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't want him to move at all. So after you take the C-spine precaution, the next tricky part is getting the helmet off. So if you can remove stuff like with the football helmet, they can typically unscrew the face mask and get the helmet off easier. But with the motocross helmet, it's a little more difficult. Typically, the rule is you want 3 people around to help you get the helmet off so you can maintain elevation. And again, take it off as slowly and as easily as you can with as little movement as possible. And then, once you get that off, you put the C collar on them. And the C collar, as we learned last week, is mainly for what? Besides stabilization.
Reminding them not to move.
Yes, nailed it,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah, remind him not to move. And then we talked about it too on like what would be an effective way to get a motocross helmet off. Like if they absolutely cannot move his head. So we talked about, what do we say, like actually sawing the helmet.
Yeah, getting the jaws of life. Yeah. You could, but that just, I think, adds so much more danger that you don't even, there's no point. You just take it off as carefully as possible.
What do you think about leaving it on in that instance?
I mean, it really just depends on how serious you think it is and how many people you have on your team and how confident you are that you can get it off without really moving them around. So it's really up to the health teams. Whoever is in charge of the health team, it's their call. So
and make the right call. The more serious it is, you would want to keep it on, right?
Again, you could, but eventually, no matter what, it has to come off.
Has to come off, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if you want to wait till you get to the hospital, okay, but that's going to make the rest of your assessments harder. You get him in the ambulance and then you got to lift the face mask. You got to talk to him. He's having a hard time talking through it. So if you got 3 people around you, you might as well go ahead and get it off.
Right. As long as you're not twisting his head to get it off.
Yeah. You're not John Wicking him,
Not trying to adjust C1 real quick and
you're not being a chiropractor in that situation.
No.
What were you going to ask, Ryan?
I was going to say, is doing it faster, would that help more because maybe there's more adrenaline going on? Or
I think smooth is fast. I don't think you should be thinking in terms of speed. I think you should be thinking in terms of being smooth. And that's really about it. Because what you were alluding to, it doesn't matter how quickly after the injury, when the helmet comes off, it doesn't really matter. Anything could happen if he continues to move around. So, then after the C collar, then you're really checking to, now you're worried about a possible head injury. especially in this case, based on like where he landed. So you're kind of checking his orientation, your goal. So do you know how to check for if somebody's alert and oriented?
Ask if they know their name and what date it is.
That's two of them. So there's four. There's four things you want to do. You got two questions.
Where you live is not one.
Wait, what were the first two you said? Name and what?
Name, what date it is, and where you live.
Yeah, that's three. Okay, give me another one.
I don't know. What's the other one, Tyler? You know that one?
I would say like just what you can remember up to that point. So like where you're at or like
Exactly.
what's taking place.
So you ask a question for person, place, time, situation. So person, ask them their name, place, where are you right now? Time, what's the date? What time is it roughly? And then situation can be a lot of different things. You get to kind of have fun with that one. My favorite question that I used to ask would be either who's the president right now? Because with as much controversy as that is, you always got a funny answer from somebody. If it was, an old geriatric person, they'd give you, it's like, God damn Biden, or, they'd be upset about it. But that would tell you that they knew who it was. And then another fun one would be just how many quarters are in a dollar or how many dimes are in a dollar. Make them think a little.
Yeah, that's good too. Did you ever have to pull the fingers? Like, how many fingers am I holding up?
No, I never did that. I was never checking vision like that. But that's the next one. And after you like to have determined orientation, you can also check for brain injuries based on eyes with the pin light. See if they're pearl, which means that the pupils are equal, round, and reactive to light. So you do this.
100%.
If they're the same thing, that's one of the best ways to tell if somebody's had a head injury, like with what we saw with Kevin Pierce.
Right.
And then
the left pupil just being blown out.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And then with spinal injuries too, after that, you kind of go through your basic assessment checks where you're going to check their airway, make sure nothing's blocking it. You're going to check their breathing and their circulation. So at this point, with it being a spinal injury, I'm going to ask you guys, what signs and symptoms do you think would be present that would kind of tell you that something's wrong with his spine in some kind of way?
Yeah, I was going to say feeling, sensation, movement, pretty much any descriptive that the individual could relay to you at the time would be beneficial for your case as an EMT.
Exactly. So you got the main ones. The main one, obviously, that everybody knows is going to be paralysis or decreased sensation, whether it's pain or light touch. And the difference between pain and light touch is huge because that tells you which part of the spine is affected or the spinal cord is affected. So because different parts of the spinal cord have different tracks that flow to each section of the body, whether it's
dermatomes.
There you go. Whether it's for pain or for light touch. There's one major thing that you guys missed a little bit. One thing that could also be obvious other than paralysis is if they've got a major deformity of some kind on their back or their neck. You see like a bulging disc or what we would call a step off or something. That's a clear sign of like, a spinal injury or something like that.
And I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, but when they seize up and they put their hands up in the air.
Yeah, I think it's not Cushing's reflex, or is it Cushing's reflex? But that's more of that's a brain injury. That's
more brain.
Yeah, that's more brain.
But nervous system.
Yeah, definitely. And anyway, other signs and symptoms that you really could be looking for are one major one in males is priapism. Ryan, do you have a guess on what priapism is yet?
Something about a pyramid, I think.
Okay.
Something Egyptian, right?
Definitely. Ryan, Tyler, Tyler, do you know what it is?
Got some history, I think.
Oh man.
I mean,
Yeah, that's where it's like an uncontrollable erection, right?
yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, do you know why it occurs?
I actually don't know
Viagra.
why it occurs.
Okay, so whenever you have severe spinal trauma, it's usually a clear sign of of severe trauma in the cervical region, so up in your neck. The the nerves, I think I might be saying it wrong, but it's the nerves that control like your blood and your arteries and stuff like that. Basically, don't work correctly, and then they cause just increased blood flow to that area for a prolonged period of time because your nerves aren't working correctly anymore. Whenever another major sign other than that, another way to tell if someone's had a severe kind of back injury too, that's also a sign of spinal shock, which is
Spinal shock.
which is a different form of shock than most people are used to hearing about. But anyway, another sign of spinal shock that you could really determine um, that there's been a major issue is a loss of blood pressure. And that's kind of for the same reason. The nerves that control the arteries kind of don't necessarily work the same way anymore. And it causes the arteries and whatnot to vasodilate, which causes it to increase in size, which causes their blood pressure to drop pretty significantly. So that's another sign of a serious spinal injury.
This might be a dumb question, but is a priapism only in a male?
Yes,
Okay.
they're the only ones that can have boners.
Well, if it's about blood pressure or something like that, I don't know if it went somewhere else.
Like
No,
swelling
it's a valid question. You're not the only one that thinks that can't tell you how many people in my EMT class had the same thought. So it's not a bad question. After you've kind of noticed these like major signs, so the thing they should have done, in my opinion, is they get the backboard out and then they get the team to log roll him while maintaining his spine in line, maintaining C spine and maintaining spinal motion restriction. They'll log roll him. And then at this point, that's when you check for the deformities in the back. You can run your hand along everything, ask them if he feels any tenderness or pain, like obviously doing it gently. And you feel if you can feel those step offs or anything wrongs with the vertebrae. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So then they'll put him on the backboard. You'll strap him in. You lift 1, 2, 3. You put him on the stretcher. You put him in the truck, and you get him to the hospital as fast as you possibly can. What they did was did all that, but they didn't log roll him. They didn't put him on a backboard, and he stood up. And I have no idea why they did that. The only thing I saw a couple things. One thing kind of said that they ruled out a cervical spinal injury. Maybe if they weren't professionals, they thought that he would be okay to stand on his own. Maybe he was pushing to stand because he wanted to. I have no idea. But that's one theory that I saw. And then another one that I kind of thought of myself is maybe they didn't have a backboard that they could lift him onto the stretcher, or they didn't have a stretcher that went all the way, because the stretchers don't go all the way to the ground necessarily. So it'd be kind of hard to deal with it. So maybe they had him walked. I don't know. I can't imagine a event like that though, not having all the necessary equipment.
Yeah, you would think they would have it literally right where he crashed, almost like just ready to go.
You go to a high school football thing and there's a EMT sitting right there. So what's the difference for a whole motocross championship not having a stretcher
Exactly.
or a backboard?
Exactly.
Yeah, it'd be like not having an ambulance like ready to go, or care flight, or you got to be ready for anything.
Yeah, like what are you doing?
Hey, they had a golf cart though. That's what matters.
They had a golf cart.
Yeah, no kidding. Then once you get him in the ambulance and you're on your way, you're going to want to do your secondary assessment. And you're really just testing for motor and sensory function. So that's when you ask questions like, can you squeeze my hand? Can you squeeze my finger? Can you squeeze my finger, both hands? Can you push and pull with your feet? Can you feel when I pinch your toes? Can you feel which finger? You do all that, and you're trying to get them to see like what their motion and what they can feel still is.
See if they have any reflexes.
What do you mean?
Like if they have any reflex to
like bang on their knee kind of thing?
Sensitivity, kind of, yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's basically just saying what's working still. And hopefully everything is still working. And in his case, it was, because he didn't have a spinal cord injury. He had a spinal vertebrae was what was injured, not the cord. The cord is inside the bone structure. The bone structure is what protects the cord. So there's 3 kind of syndromes that you can kind of tell if it's a bad injury in a person with a spinal cord injury, and an incomplete spinal cord injury. So a complete spinal cord injury is when it's completely severed and you're completely paralyzed below the injury. An incomplete spinal cord injury is just kind of whether it's a compression. It's not a complete sever. Like it's just an injury to a certain area of the spinal cord. So there is central cord syndrome, anterior cord syndrome, and Brown-Séquard syndrome. So I was going to ask you guys, in anterior syndrome, what part of the cord is injured, do you think?
The
Ryan?
outside, the outer part of the spine.
You're not wrong. So front or back? Front or back?
The front.
Correct.
Other one's posterior.
Nailed it. Attaboy.
There we go. Exercise science.
There you go.
Sometimes it hits you, sometimes it doesn't.
So now with that knowledge, central cord syndrome, where's the injury?
In the middle.
Nailed it again.
Interior.
You're on fire. Here's
Boom.
the hard one. Brown-Séquard syndrome. Where's the injury?
I said it'd be to the sides, like the right or the left side, because you got the front and the back and the central side already covered.
Yes, correct. Here's the fun part. Where in each of those syndromes does that if in each of those syndromes, what is the kind of injury you expect to see, like the signs and symptoms? Where's the weakness or paralysis? So for central, where would it be?
The brain.
No. Think body. Think body. Where the body is paralyzed.
We might need you to break this down.
I'm thinking hips.
No.
It's central,
That's a good guess. Tyler?
Apparently not.
It's okay.
No, go ahead and break it down, Chuck.
Okay, so for central, the weakness or paralysis is going to be to the upper body, just because the tracks from the central area of the spinal cord go to the upper body. That's where the central tracks go. It goes to the upper body to control the upper body. So now knowing that, do you have an idea what would be weak or paralyzed with anterior cord syndrome? Or do you want me to just explain it? I'm honestly not expecting you guys to get this part.
I mean, I would say that'd be lower half.
Okay. Ryan?
Sides or the arms, obviously. No, you go ahead and break it down for us. Otherwise, I'm going to keep doing this.
No, that's fine. I'm having a good time. Okay, so an injury to the anterior part of the cord can cause loss of pain and motor function below the injury, but they will also retain their light touch sensation. Light touch tracks are on the posterior side of the spinal cord. So that means, say it's low on the lumbar or whatever, you got weakness and paralysis in your legs. You can still feel light touch sensation if it's anterior cord syndrome. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now with that, Brown-Séquard syndrome is kind of the complicated one. This is an injury to the right or left part of the cord, but the pain and light touch kind of get mixed up on sides. They switch sides as it goes down the spinal cord. So what I mean by that is it can cause motory or sensory loss on different sides. For the example would be if you lose motor function and light touch on one side of your body, but you only lose pain on the other side. So maybe you can move on one side and feel light touch, but you like if I pinch like your finger really hard or pinch your skin, you're not going to feel it. Whereas on the other side, you can't move and you can't feel light touch. But if I pinch you really hard, that's the only thing you're really going to feel. So that's kind of a complicated one just because those wires, those tracks kind of cross as they go to the body. Anyway, that was my fun little science section for you guys. But as a non-professional, only thing you can really do from emergency standpoint is kind of what we talked about last week too. Take that C-spine, make sure they don't move him around, and don't even remove his helmet. Wait till professionals get there, the so-called professionals. And if they're awake, keep them calm, remind them not to move, tell them that help is on the way. Make sure that they're breathing and they have a pulse. And that if you can, maybe ask them a couple questions, not only to keep them calm, but to kind of see where their head's at. And you can kind of relay that to the health professionals once they arrive.
So are you actively trying to make sure they stay awake here too?
Not necessarily. I mean, you can, but in this situation, the health professionals are going to get there first. But if it's you and your friends are riding around and you got to wait 20 minutes for an ambulance, yeah, it's probably a good idea to make sure they stay awake if they're awake as best you can. But you're not going to shake them. You're not going to slap them. You're not going to do anything like that.
No shot.
You're not moving them. You're just talking. So that's all you're doing.
Pick them up and put them in the car.
None of that. None of that. What do you say we move on to that? That's enough of the emergency. What do you say we move on to the rehab?
To the rehab.
So from what I could tell, this was what you'd call a stable burst fracture of the L3 and L4 vertebrae, as you mentioned earlier on the transverse process, which if you look at an anatomical model of a vertebrae, it's one of the thing like prongs that's hanging off to the side. Right?
To the sides, for sure.
Okay. Typical rehab. With him, it's non-surgical, which is the good thing. Everything I saw, he's not going to need surgery on anything. So it wasn't super serious. I mean, obviously, spinal fracture is still serious, but no surgery is needed. So his rehab is really going to be looking for like the first 3 months. He's probably going to have to wear a back brace or a brace of some kind to kind of restrict that movement and promote the healing process and kind of rest that area. And 3 months from what I saw is kind of the cutoff for wearing the brace, because after that, the kind of core muscles and whatnot start to get too weak, which is something you definitely don't want with a back injury. You want those core muscles to stay strong if you can. And then after kind of the brace is removed, even while you still have the brace, you can probably still do light physical therapy, but you're mainly going to be looking at different areas of physical therapy. But before I get there, I was going to ask you guys, have y'all ever had to be in any kind of brace of any kind?
I've only had an ankle brace for, it was a high ankle sprain through football, but typically the main thing is like for this situation, the brace is there just to provide his support while the fracture heals, of course. And
Right.
the initial rehab would be trying to reduce as much inflammation as possible. So they might get this person on steroids, they might get them on an ice to maybe red laser routine, potentially stimulation through like e-stim or interferential or ultrasound to at least get some tissue activity, but also reduce any fluid buildup or swelling. Um, and that would be initial stages for sure to reduce inflammation as much as possible. Um, Typically, I'm not a huge fan of braces when it comes to the rehab setting. But for like day to day, if you're not super confident with mechanical movements, then the brace is necessary.
Yeah.
No, I have never really used braces, but other than my teeth, and then uh, I have used like ankle tape as my like I wasn't as confident as my mechanicals, as Tyler was saying. So I would use
Yeah.
ankle tape for my ankle sprains when I was in baseball and still playing day to day. I would just tape it up and say, let's go. And I didn't really want to use braces either. So that's what I did.
Fair enough. The only brace I've ever had to use was the one after I had Tommy John surgery.
Oh, you were in that brace. That was actually when I met Chuck. He was in that brace.
Yeah, dude. I had to wear that thing for like, I don't remember the timeline. It was like 3 to 6 months. I think it was only 3, but that sucked. Cause like the only thing I could do was like, it was like this, and there was a knob here, and it had a whole like 360-degree kind of thing on it. And it let me adjust how far I can move each way. So like my only rehab for those 3 months was like stretch that way, stretch this way 20 times as much as I can. It hurt. It did not feel good.
Yeah, you wore that brace like the entire time in motor learning and motor control.
I know. It was kind of funny.
It didn't look fun. He was just over there squeezing his stress ball like 100 miles an hour.
I've seen a ton of people with braces, from Tommy John, being in a college baseball, like the world of that, you see a ton of Tommy John surgeries and people with it. And you're like, golly, this guy's hurt too.
Yeah.
But I've also seen, like growing up, there were some kids that just grew up with like back problems, and you'd see them with back braces all the time just because they had to. Interesting.
Another good one, seeing your buddy break their collarbone growing up, and then they got to wear that
yeah.
the extension retraction brace,
Yeah.
and they have to like mobilize like this all the time.
Yeah. He can't like turn at all. I've seen that. That one's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, it is funny. Whatever.
What a bad person.
When we were like, when we
Well,
were 7, 8 years old, and you see your buddy walking around with his chest out, and he's like waddling. It was pretty funny.
It's like coming out of his jeans.
yeah. Oh, geez. Back to the rehab. You were saying, so for pain reduction, just to go off of what you said, I also read that they would maybe prescribe something called calcitonin, or is that just for like osteoporosis in old people with the same kind of injury?
Calcitonin, I don't have a whole lot of familiarity with it.
I'm assuming it's calcium.
That could be supplemented, I would imagine, to help heal a fracture faster.
It's like
potentially.
it's a bone density drug. There's some other ones too, but that was the main one I saw.
Right. Like I said, I've never been in a spot where my experience we've had to prescribe that, but given its association with like osteopenia or something like that, I could understand why it would be needed.
Yeah.
But a lot of what you would see is like your muscle relaxers and your dose packs and steroids and potentially injections to control and minimize inflammation and pain as much as possible, so you can get to treatment faster in order to move with less pain or restriction.
Yeah. And I like you said, I think that's the whole point of the first 3 months while you're in that brace too. It's trying to get to the point where it doesn't hurt so bad that you can actually move again and actually strengthen it up again.
Right. And then you put on here too, like soft tissue massages and like needling, which, there's dry needling and then the like active electrical needling, threading.
I
And
just had that
then,
done to my shoulder the other day.
yeah. Do you feel a
Mhm.
big difference?
No, it still hurts.
It takes time, dude. I mean, I did dry needling for my upper trap like 5 times a week when I was doing my shoulder rehab. And
Dude, it sucks.
I could feel the tissue release every time the needle inserted into the belly of the muscle tissue. I could feel the tissue fight the needle
Yeah.
and then release and relax. It was a wild
Well,
sensation.
it feels good when the needle's in and like you feel the current kind of going through it. It feels kind of good, but it's still like afterwards, I'm just like, man, it's just not where I want it to be.
Is that kind of like cupping?
No, cupping
Then-
is just kind of to centralize blood flow to the tissue and almost saturate the tissue with blood to kind of hydrate the area and reduce adhesions and just kind of almost massage and like floss the tissue. We also do trigger point injections in our clinics
Yep.
where it's like the needling, but you pair it with lidocaine or an anti-inflammatory. Some might supplement that with like a Toradol or something to help reduce further inflammation. But I've never experienced the electrical needling. I've done the trigger point injections, and that's actually helped me out quite a bit.
The electrical,
Whether there's like excessive tightness or something like that, you can get relief and comfort from it for sure.
yeah. The electrical is interesting. He put, I think, 4 or 5 needles in my infraspinatus. I think that's my issue. I think it's my infraspinatus. And then he attached like the electrodes to it, turned it on, and he just told me, he's like, tell me when it's almost too much, but you can tolerate it. And I was like, okay. And then he just like, all right, I'll be back in 20 minutes. Do you want the lights off? And I was like, sure. And I like took a nap while this thing was like shocking me.
Yeah. No, I've seen people take naps too. I mean, more power to them if they can take it a nap. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've never done the electrical. Sometimes though, for like the needling, the micro needling, and the trigger point injections, sometimes that's like a 6-week process, consistently week to week, where you're working on relaxing that tissue. Because if it's excessively inflamed, it's not going to respond super well with one treatment or
Yeah.
like 1 week of doing it.
For sure.
So it's got to be something you consistently work on with your rehab and training in unison. But you will see a change for sure if you stay on top of it and communicate the right way. You just can't expect an end all fix all when you do it one time. Just for listeners out there, you gotta have some consistency there.
Yeah. And just to drive home that point, the first time I went to go see this chiropractor, I had a back issue and he fixed me. It like complete pain. Everything was gone after 2 visits. This time around, I just got done with my 6th visit and I'm like, I feel like I'm just halfway there. So it just depends on the injury. It's injury to injury.
Yeah, it depends on the tissue response, of course, the mechanism of injury, the trauma, the inflammatory process, and what other external factors could be inflaming that too. So that's where
I mean,
that's why people ask about alcohol and drugs and like what your history is there and like what you're consuming, how much are you hydrating, macros, all that good stuff. So
every person's
sleeping
different.
too. You gotta sleep.
Yeah, most people don't get enough sleep. That's a big one.
It's tough in those states though. You're not comfortable. And the main thing within those first 3 months is like get comfortable. Get as comfortable as you can.
Exactly.
And hopefully that reduces that time frame of 3 months to as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's up to 3 months. Again, it varies case by case. after that kind of pain reduction phase and you can start moving around a bit more, the next thing I saw that we're going to really start doing is like the flexibility kind of exercises that just really works on your range of motion, not just with, his lower back, but like the whole, the neck, middle and low back, your hips and your shoulder area, because everything is connected. And if one thing's tight, it's going to mess up the whole ship. So
Just especially with the scapula too for him.
yeah, the scap is also broken. I forgot about that. That's true.
It's not a very comfortable situation for the scapula and L3, L4 to have a fracture. I wonder how he's sleeping right now. I'm curious to how he is.
He's probably dosed up.
He's got to be dosed up.
There's no way I could sleep with that.
I imagine he's either flat on his back or on the left side if it's the right scapula, like sleeping on the left. But
yep,
any way you can get comfortable at that point.
Definitely. So for the flexibility exercises too, the main thing that I could think of would just be, various yoga poses and then some spinal rotation as much as you can tolerate, but you don't want to overdo that, obviously. And then Pilates. It's all just that kind of basic, easy movement, easy stretching in order to regain the flexibility and regain some strength. But again, the main thing is don't expect it to work after 1-2 sessions. It takes a while. And
depending on the orientation of his x-ray too, we do a process that I've got experience with called the McKinsey method, to where
I've heard of that.
If there is a positional change within the pelvis, or if there's vertebrae that are a little bit more compressed or reducing disc space, you talk about degenerative disc disease. If you get into flexion and get relief, then we're going to hammer flexion to the extent where we are reducing that pain response, whether that is like a shooting pain or a sharp pain, numbness and tingling. Some people respond really well with extension. It just really depends on the case and the location. So, you have to do high repetition movements, and especially building your way up to where you can do rotation. You can't just do like a set of 5, set of 10 and be like, oh, it's not working, so I guess I'm going to quit.
That's not going to cut it. It's just not.
And like we talk about high repetition, I'll prescribe in this setting like a set of 20 to an aggregate to 100 reps a day, almost at minimum, if this is the right direction to create one, if there is a disc injury, reforming the disc and not increasing a herniation or a bulge.
Yeah.
And also decreasing pressure that could be displaced on a nerve, which I've been told from sources that it could only take the weight of a dime to compress a nerve. So not a whole lot of pressure that could create that kind of referral pattern. But over time, if you're consistent with the movements and you're actively putting in the repetition, you can see very fast improvement. And sometimes it's day one too. Not all the time, but if you're moving in the right direction, you find out and you assess, then sometimes it works.
I think that's the biggest frustration with healthcare providers in any kind of form, is knowing that your patient isn't doing the work because you see no progress. And you're like, look, like, you can lie to me all you want, but I know what's going on. I know you're not telling me the truth.
And the biggest thing
doctors
is like,
don't deal with bullshit. Doctors will not let you bullshit them if they're a good doctor. They're like, you're not doing what is needed, and that's why you're not getting better.
Oh, providers know. They know if you're doing the work. They know if you're not doing the work. So
exactly.
Don't tell them you are when clearly everything's still going south, because you're not.
Yeah.
And like big thing to that is when people come in, say they got like an L3 fracture, and they're like, I'll just get the exercises and doing them at home. It's like, no shot, bro. Like, You're not going to come in with a spinal fracture and not be supervised throughout the process for at
Yeah, that's
least
insane.
3 to 6 weeks. Because what happens if you come in and you're all of a sudden like everything's tenfold worse now? It's like, well, this is why we wanted you to be here.
Yeah, and now you guys could be possibly held liable for that, for
Oh, yeah.
malpractice or whatever.
It's potential. If it's not documented, then insurance isn't going to help you anyway. So
True. All right, but moving on from the flexibility, now you're gonna, once you kind of get a little into this, then you're gonna really start working on your strengthening exercises. So Ryan, what do you think could be some good strengthening exercises for someone kind of in this position?
Well, you know, you got your squats, you got your dumbbells, your RDLs.
Okay. So what else would you use besides maybe dumbbells or like heavy weights or something like that? What's another?
Body weight workouts, push-ups, side squats, side lunges.
Mm-hmm. What could you add to side squats and side lunges that makes it a little harder?
Add some weight, like a dumbbell.
It's not a weight.
No, a band.
There
You
you
can add a
go.
band.
Yeah, some resistance training.
There you go.
low resistance bands. That'll go back into like the directional preference process where if somebody can hinge, then that might put them in a good spot to build on further within the process. Sometimes with a lower back injury, if there is a disc related injury or a fracture, hinging is a little more difficult to do. And
Definitely.
It's a little more susceptible to a pain response, just because of that flexion and gravitational pull aspect that takes place. So yeah, you can kind of really customize it once you get more into where you can laterally flex right or left without any issues, especially with transverse process because it's like right on the side. And if there is any negative information giving us feedback, like if there is increasing in pain or discomfort, not burning is fine. And centralizing pain is also beneficial too. So if you have a pain that has been widespread across your back, you start doing a specific movement and then it starts to decrease, but centralize in one spot. That's also a positive response. So there are certain things you can push through, but I would say for like this specific injury with a fracture, keeping the spine a little more neutral is a good route to go because you're not going to be compromising or risking an increase in the pain. And you can kind of mitigate that through the process if you're seeing a positive response through a neutral spine.
Nailed it. Yeah, everything I was reading was saying the exact same thing. You know, you're not going to want to do a lot of hinge workouts. You're not going to want to move that kind of in that area, but you still want to strengthen everything the best you can, whether it's lower body, hip, core is huge. If you can do some core and then, you know, basic resistance training and then kind of everything else that you were talking about. So I think you nailed it right on the head as well.
I was going to add it like after you start getting into those movements, like you just listed, impact can particularly increase bone density too. So getting to that point where maybe this is like 4 to 6 weeks or, you know, like after the inflammation has started to calm down, like 4 to 6 weeks after that, then you can start doing a little bit more progressive overload and dynamic movements and
like
higher impact activity,
jumping, walking, that kind of thing, to where it's
for
like,
sure.
it's still body weight impact, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And then you can also start promoting that healing through impact, which to maintain bone density, you need to do impact. And that's kind of why you start to see osteopenia in older individuals because they're not going and jumping a rope for 1,000 skips a day anymore, or like they're not going to do a broad jump, or they're not trying to go power clean anything. So, and you can kind of go look into some other studies where, like the one that's super cool to see is that marathon runner comparison to a sedentary older individual.
Oh, dude, I saw that where that
And
muscle tissue is just
you
to an
see-
80-year-old.
Yeah, you see
Oh, that is
the tissue density and also the bone density, and
oh,
it's
it's
like
crazy. It's crazy.
night and day. And they're the same age.
Yeah.
And it looks like a healthy 30-year-old who's like active, but it's like, no,
Yeah.
that dude's 80.
His bone is thicker, and like you can just see that it's so much more muscular compared to the 80-year-old who isn't. It's just the 80-year-old who's sedentary. It just looks so bad.
You could tell there's like cellulite and a whole bunch of
It's all
other,
fat.
like,
It's all fat.
deconditioned tissue that's just not activated. It's just like
Yeah.
almost wasting at that point, which is a little more extreme, but
Yeah.
it's kind of what it looks like.
To add on to the strengthening exercises as well, other good things that you can do to help move the process along and also prevent future injuries are going to be like doing things like posture and spine sparing exercises and balance exercises. So posture exercises can be, being like in a doorway and doing reps where you're like leaning forward and really stretching that area out, kind of pushing the scaps back together. But that's also going to be hard for Austin because his scap is broken. That could be a little more painful, but that depends on how his healing process goes. Could do. And then some shoulder blade contractions as well. Basic stuff like that. Just different things working on posture. And then the main one that I did when I had Tommy John surgery that my guy made me do was I had to like get back on the wall like this and then keep my shoulder blades and everything kind of pressed against the wall as I went up. And that kind of keeps everything in line and kind of fixes your posture as well. And again, it's just repetition with that.
Wall angels.
Those suck. I hated those. That was one of my least favorite exercises. Those aren't easy.
Wall slides and wall angels. I've worked with a couple like bodybuilders, and
they can't do them, can they?
They can't stand them. They'll be sweating and they'll be all red and like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah,
like,
dude, they can't do it. It's impossible.
No, it wears them out. It'd be like 2 sets of 15 and they're like, what the hell is this shit? It's like, why can't I do this?
Exactly. And then as far as balance exercises go, you can probably kind of guess from here. It'll be things like single leg step ups on a step. You could do a thing called grapevine walk where you're kind of going foot over foot and kind of crossing your feet as you go sideways. You could do walk heel toe in a straight line. Other different movements really without weight on one leg. Cone pickups where like you bend down, pick up a cone or touch a cone, sit back up on one leg, stay on one leg that whole time. Also maintaining neutral spine while you're doing all of this.
The proper hinge.
Exactly.
Proper hinge.
And then any number of these with one leg, you could also do on a Bosu ball if you're feeling like, well, if you're using a Bosu ball, you've also advanced pretty far in your physical therapy, I'd say, because you have to have good balance to even get on one of those things, let alone train on one.
Or like a foam pad, like a foam balance pad too. That's a good little external stimulus.
Very true. And that's all I got for the rehab section. Do you have anything else you want to add to that end, or are you good?
You don't want to just think stretching too. Like you want to get pretty aggressive in the strengthening side. So, and like you said, keeping a neutral spine throughout the process and making sure you're not getting in a compromised position, which if you have good supervision, you're not going to get in that position either way. But just being mindful when you are at home doing your day-to-day things that, you got the proper mechanics. And that's kind of where occupational therapists come in too. If it is to that extent, they'll teach you how to do those day-to-day activities, even all the way to showering and getting in bed, which he might need that right now too.
Oh, he probably does.
At least for the scapula side, they probably at least trained him up a little bit on how he should approach getting into bed, or maybe not like supervising him the whole time, but.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And again, I think one of the biggest things with the back injury too is like, yeah, you want to strengthen your back and the area of the injury. But I think one of the most important areas is actually your core in the front. It's a healthy balance, and without a healthy core or a strong core in the front, that's just going to put your back out of balance even more, and put you at risk for re-injury.
And that's where I also deviate to quads and glutes, like quads, hammies, and glutes, because first things to lose strength and have back pain is also your glutes. Like if you can't have a strong glute to support your hip, then your hip pain transfers into lower back pain. So having a strong lower half and core is pretty big for the situation.
Yep. It's all connected. That's the thing, one thing breaks down, then the other thing, something makes up for it. And then the thing that's making up for it eventually breaks down itself. So it's important to really just healthy body, healthy mind, all that good stuff.
Don't settle
Anyway,
for the minimum.
well, you want to take us to our discussion topics and we'll wrap this up?
To the discussion. So
Go
we
ahead,
talked
dude.
about rating these injuries. We rated Kevin Pierce's pretty high. What did we say? Like 9.4?
We all gave him like 9 point something.
9.1. And that was just such a long injury process, like
Well, that was a
rehab
brutal one.
process. I think this one he's thinking about career decisions a little bit here. So what do y'all think we should rate this one here?
I'm thinking about like a 6.2. Like it's serious, but he didn't have to get surgery. It does change his career, maybe, but it's still something nobody wants.
I was leaning towards about a 6 or a 7 myself. I'll give him a 6.8 just to go a little bit higher than you, just because of the way he had to deal with the health team standing him up. And I'm sure that didn't feel very good either. He looked like he was in pain too.
Oh yeah.
I don't get it. But I'm gonna go with the 6. I'm gonna go with the 6.8 because it was the spinal skeleton. I can't. There's a word for it. The spinal skeleton, a vertebrae that was cracked, but his spinal cord was intact, which is the good news. Not paralyzed, which is a blessing. So he should be able to rehab from this and come back pretty strong. But the retirement thing that's in the air also kind of adds to it. So
mental stress too. Yeah.
all of it. I got to go with the 6.8. I think 6.8 is good.
We'll give the EMT team a 0.
There you go. I'll give him a 0.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with y'all. It's no surgery that's needed for intervention there. It's going to take some time for that to heal. Of course, the scapula just super uncomfortable. I think that boosts the numbers up there a little bit, and then it being spine related is always scary
For sure.
But luckily, it was also best case scenario for a spinal fracture, in my opinion, for how he landed and what took place. So yeah, I'm right there in between y'all, like 6.4, 6.5. We're right there.
Or 6.2,
Hey, y'all are right on it. I'm telling you.
Boom. All right.
I think if he does the proper protocols and takes his time, he could still ride. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I think it's more so they might be thinking, well, what's the next injury going to be? Maybe that's where they're getting fear. But
yeah, but that's what every athlete deals with. I don't think he's definitely not thinking that. That's what everybody else thinks around him. Be like, oh, what's the next thing that's going to happen? He's not thinking that from an athletic standpoint. I don't think.
I mean, his Instagram video he gets pretty emotional. He starts crying a little bit about talking about his journey and what he's been through and how he should approach this next chapter. And I know there's probably some family stress there, looking out for his best interests too, just like with Kevin Pierce's situation. But I think if he's in the right hands and really gets with a good sports medicine team, they could probably push him in the right direction where he gets his mind right. And if he still has that hunger, still's got that dog in him, he might try and get back into it.
The question is really, I mean, like what else does he have to accomplish? Or is he still just going out there for the love of the game? Or
Yeah.
what is it? Because some guys are just such competitors. I mean, look at Tiger Woods, dude. Tiger Woods has nothing else to prove. And he's still
No.
out there playing.
No, and that's a great example because I mean he's had multiple injuries that he could have easily been like, yeah, I can just play for fun now.
And
Or
he's
like,
been top dog forever. Like,
yeah. And honestly, there's a lot of different cases where people have even this same injury as Tiger, and they're like, I'm never playing golf again. But he's
Yeah.
like, nah, I'm going to go walk the course for 3 days and I'm going to play through it. I think he's a great example,
yeah.
I think that's a good point. Not bad on the rate there, guys. I thought we nailed that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you think will be the hardest part about this rehab process? In my mind, I think it's really going to be the mental side and just being able to have that confidence back to where he's not feeling like he's just fragile all the time or anything like that. So I think there's a big mental side that's going to take place because it was a scary looking crash. He said he's never seen anybody crash like that. And for him to see it being himself crash, like, I mean, that'd be like seeing you fall like 40 feet from a cliff and then roll like 30 feet on a snowboard. And you're like,
I'm okay.
I can't believe that was me, So I definitely think there's a mental aspect where, I mean, you envision success to be good at the sport, and then you have that mental image from the last time you got on a bike.
Yeah.
So there's probably some hurdles there that might take him some time to get over.
The hardship he's going to have to do rehabbing with a spinal injury is you're gonna have to move somehow, and if that's not going to hurt, it just isn't going to be right. It's going to take some time for sure. I think that would be the hardest part.
You need your back to move at all, like for everything.
Oh yeah.
For me, I was just going to say the hardest part is probably that first 1 to 3 months of, having to wear that brace and, like you said, get comfortable trying to sleep and do everything in that thing. And I know how uncomfortable it is to be in a brace. It sucks. It's not fun. So that's the worst of it for me, I think.
And I just keep thinking about the broken scapula or fractured scapula.
Oh,
I'm
dude,
just like,
yeah, like trying to roll over in the middle of the night, just like, okay.
like you're thinking about almost both halves of the body here, So
yeah, dude, good luck.
It's got to be taxing.
Yeah, just like the normal routine stuff you do every day, like grabbing a chair with your hand, just pulling it, and then you're like, oh my gosh.
Or yeah, even like a cabinet, like an up top cabinet.
It just opens the fridge and it's out of whack. Oh.
Yeah, watching Netflix. I mean, he's got to find a way to get comfortable, like we talked about.
Good luck. All right. Next one.
All right. So, why is a transverse process fracture the best case scenario for a spinal fracture in his case?
I think I got a good answer, but I'm going to let Ryan go first.
Isn't it a clean cut? Is it kind of?
Somewhat, kind of in a way. Yeah. I mean, like you said, no surgical intervention, which is a huge plus. I mean, he doesn't need a fusion. He doesn't need a disc resection.
So does it kind of heal by itself over time?
Yes.
Is that maybe why it can be a better one?
Right.
For sure. That's stuff. Yeah. For me, I was just going to say, to build off of what Ryan said, that I think that's definitely part of it. But I think for me, the biggest part of it is it's one of the farthest pieces of a vertebrae that's away from the spinal cord.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not, the closer you get to the spinal cord, the more scary that kind of injury gets. So since
no
it's
doubt.
like one of the furthest points away, I think it's the safest area to have a vertebrae fracture.
Oh yeah,
That's kind of my thinking.
I'm with you on that. And I was going to say, in relation to his sport, like if he's trying to get back into riding, that building off of what you said, it being the furthest away from the spinal cord, being able to sustain like compression within the vertebrae, that's not really going to be heavily affected compared to like a true like medial straight up vertebral fracture or compression fracture, which a lot of guys in motocross have sustained. Even mine and Ryan's cousin, who raced with my dad, he cased a triple and had a compression fracture, and I think that actually put him on disability. So it just one of those things that positionally he got pretty lucky with at the same time.
Definitely.
You know, he could still sustain some compression there for the future, which not a bad thing. He's got some good things to look forward to. Now, deviating a little bit, what is the best energy drink?
This is our nutrition corner for the week.
Yeah, you got motocross, big sector for energy drinks. You go to a motocross, supercross, they're handing them out for free. Like you, before you even walk in the gate, you might have 4 of them for free in your bag, and you're like, I'm not drinking all of these. Like, my goodness, you know. And some of them now, they have like Monster Energy stands, Rockstar Energy stands, where they actually make you finish them before you leave their tent.
That's insane.
Or,
why?
you know, you can throw it away, but even Dew Tour and X Games, they'll have tents for like Monster Energy, and it's like you can drink them for free here, or you can buy them. So you just can't leave with them.
Gross.
X Games Austin was like that too. They're like, you can have as many as you want, but you got to drink them all right here. I'm like, how is this safe?
It's not.
We shouldn't be just like giving out 600 milligrams of caffeine in the heat of Austin, Texas in the summer. But, you know, you gotta know what you're putting in your body, because a lot of these, they are 160 milligrams of caffeine up to 300 that you can buy in a can nowadays. So some down to 112 ish.
So which one's your favorite?
Depends on the day, man.
I know you suck them down like there's no tomorrow. I can't stand them.
I will say that is like a vice of mine. We cut out sodas in like 7th grade. So it's like water, tea, coffee,
Monster,
juice, energy drink. And I had my first energy drink when I was like 7. And it was called Hanson's energy drink. They don't even make that shit anymore. And they're actually pretty good.
So is that your favorite?
No, I mean, and you could buy
that one.
You could buy them at like Sam's Club. You get a 32 pack for like $16. Different pricing back then, but man, like I said, it depends on the day. It depends if I want sugar free. Depends if I want sugar in it.
Last one you can ever have in your entire life. Go.
Ooh. Last one I can ever have.
It depends on the day.
Yeah, this is where I'm like, what am I doing that day?
Oh my God, dude.
Because you look at Bang Energy, that's the one everybody's like, I feel like I'm on crack, or I feel like I'm on coke, whatever, yada, yada. Because it's 300 milligrams of caffeine, but it's also methylated B12. So it's methylcobalamin. It's not the synthetic version. So it hits your system like, oh shit, it's real B12.
This is so funny that you know so much about these drinks.
Yeah, you got a lot of essential aminos in there too. You got creatine in that one. So performance base, Bang, I think, is the way to go.
Got it.
Leisure base, Monster I do like an OG Monster if I want the sugar. They do have sugar-free available, and they actually have the OG sugar-free, which is pretty comparable. Brian's also got the Rio Punch right now.
Yep.
The Flash.
Oh.
The Flash. Look at that can design. Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
And another one
Toucan.
I like that Toucan too. Another one that I like too is the Accelerator by A-Shock. Yeah, it's called Island Guava, and it's plant-based thermogenics. So it's very it's not as bubbly, and it makes you feel like pretty good. You don't crash. It's got sea salt in there. It's got a good little combo.
All right, Ryan.
The crazy thing is these days there's a ton of brands.
So many.
And
Everybody's
back then,
got one.
you had 3 brands, and it's now like the new seltzer. Everybody's got to have one. Now everybody's got to have an energy drink.
Yep.
So I can kind of see his leisure to performance based. Some people like certain things. I'm going to say my favorite, I don't know, in college, I loved Rain, and that's like a part of Monster. They're like their sector of, it's like a whole nother brand, but it's a part of them. And that's
like the Bang of Monster.
Yeah, that's their 300 milligram caffeine one. And I like those in college, and I still drink those today. So I'll say that one.
And they do have good flavor. Like, honestly, they do a good job with their flavor variation, I believe. Rainbow Sherbet, that's a good one.
Yeah, Orange Dreamsicle. They got a new one called Sour Gummy Worms. It's pretty good. White Gummy Bear. Something like that. All the weird names. But good flavors. If you like Skittles, you probably like one of those.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, have you seen the Beyond Lit raw ones? They'll carry them in like a store, GNC, Walmart, health store, sometimes in a gym too. And they actually have like red dye number 40 and blue dye number 4 and like yellow dye number 6 or whatever. But just watch out for those, because I didn't know that. And I was like, why are we putting all these dyes in here?
Well, that's like an actual creatine, isn't it? And they just made drinks from it.
Yeah, it's a full pre-workout. Yeah,
I had some teammates that had that, and I took it one time, and I was like, golly, I'm really itchy right now.
That's the beta alanine in there for sure. Beta alanine will make you itch.
And I was like, no, I'm not having this one anymore.
And I think in those they have it's like 3 grams of L-citrulline in it and beta alanine too. So you're like, it's like there's ants crawling on you a little bit.
All right, Chuck, what's your go-to?
I hate energy drinks with a passion. So
what's your alternative?
If I had to pick one, just to pick one, I guess Celsius.
Celsius is clean.
Celsius isn't bad. I've had that a couple times on road trips, but the story of the reason why I hate them is a funny story. So in high school, I would have friends come over and whatnot, and we wanted to play beer pong, but we were all underage, obviously, and my parents would be home. So we would play beer pong with energy drinks, and we would use Monster and whatnot, or whatever we could get our hands on. We did
Volt.
Yeah, whatever it was. Anyway, so I'm like, we're all just chugging energy drinks. And at some point, somebody bets me that I can't chug a whole can after I've been chugging like all these things or something like that. So I down as much as I possibly can and immediately projectile vomit everywhere. And we're like in my room. We're inside. And to this day, if I smell like a Monster energy drink, I want to vomit. It's horrible.
So that's his villain origin story of energy drink.
Exactly. That's why I hate them.
This is pretty bad as like memory association there.
It's funny though, so it's fine.
No,
But all right,
I respect it.
Moving on from energy drinks.
Moving on. So, should foot pegs be changed or manipulated on motorcycles? Because that's essentially how I got the scar on my hip, from a foot peg on the motorcycle.
I don't have an opinion because I've never done motocross and I don't really know about the intricacies of foot pegs and what's wrong with them or what's going on with them. So I have no idea. I don't have an opinion.
I think that's fair. Some of them nowadays, like they got some good jagged edges on them. Like they look sharp, like
yeah.
almost spiky looking. They used to not look like that.
Is that the main issue with them, or do they stick out too far, or what is it?
Well, they mainly that they're kind of, they look like a hazard is what some people are saying. And
so they're jagged.
They're pretty jagged. Like I said, somebody had a pretty major laceration in a race, and that's when that topic started being brought up. And I thought about it, how cyclists have the clip-ins where they can kind of take their foot on and off real quick and stay clipped in for a little while. I was thinking maybe if it doesn't interfere with the engine, that they could have some sort of like magnet type deal where they could slide on and off really easy. But who knows? Because let's say this happens to Forkner and his wreck. What if his feet are still stuck to the bike? Like,
yeah,
how's that look after? It's really hard to tell because the sport's always been the way it is. Maybe they just don't make their edges as jagged, but you still need a little grip there. So it's kind of tough to tell.
I gotcha. Ryan, what do you think?
I would think they would invent something to make it a little bit better, but I kind of like the binding idea. It's tough to, because they're going so fast, you don't want them to be stuck to a bike. I feel like there's a better option other than metal, sharp, like teeth, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what it looks like, yeah. I know, like, going into the berms and the turns, guys like to put their foot down and they kind of lean into those turns. So you want to be able to mobilize super easy with that and not have any issues. Or
could you almost do like a half bind where it's like it goes around it a little bit, but on the outside it opens up?
Potentially, maybe like skis where you have a quick release upon impact.
I'm thinking like there's nothing attached, but it's almost like this is half of it and you just slide your foot in and then you still can like use it, but then you can still like come out of it.
Oh, I got what you're saying. Yeah, it'd be something they just have to test, like design it, apply it, test it, see if it's comfortable, see if it works.
Seems like it's worth it, honestly, if so many people are having issues with it.
I mean, it's worth to at least try it.
Right.
I'm with you on that. Because, yeah, if it wasn't for a jagged edge on a foot peg, I wouldn't have that scar on my hip too. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
So, who are the top 3 people you'd want to have dinner with that are alive or dead? Who's at your table?
Is this your pop culture one?
Yep.
Okay.
Before we get into it, I think we should try to get some ideas out there. Like who would be good options?
So
like,
I would say excluding family members.
Okay.
Are we talking sports only or everybody?
No, anybody. Who's your 3?
Okay.
Your big 3.
Can they be fake, like fantasy people?
Yeah, are you going historical route?
Well, I mean, like movie, like was like.
Oh, gotcha.
Like
yeah,
that's what I mean.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Like people that aren't real, like in pop culture too. That could be an interesting conversation or something.
Yeah, like if you want to have Frodo at your dinner table and
Fuck, yeah, that's what I'm saying,
like
dude. Let me talk to
Darth
Sauron
Maul.
and be like, what the fuck is his deal?
This guy loves Lord of the Rings.
Dude, I do. I'm a Star Wars guy too. I'll talk to Darth Maul. Get Vader at the table, whatever.
Darth Maul, Hagrid.
Jar Jar Binks.
Hagrid. I don't know. Ryan, what you got?
Oh man. Well, I was trying to think of real people, and I was thinking,
Do real?
like, well, yeah, you could go music route, you could go sports, like a Babe Ruth. You could do Mac Miller. You could go Rob
Chester
Bearden.
Cheeto.
Chester Cheeto. Man, y'all like the fantasy ones.
Chester Cheetah, not Cheeto, but Kool-Aid Man.
Oh yeah.
Peter Griffin. I mean, think of Peter Griffin in real life. Is he like just an animated character?
He's just like
He just lives in your closet.
just twinkling on his toes across the room.
Just comes out, points at you.
He's like
The monkey.
Yeah.
He's like a clock. Every time he comes out, he does "bird is the word."
Oh God, dude.
Every hour.
Yeah.
That'd
All
be
right.
exhausting.
Give me 3. Do you want me to go? Do you want me to go? All right. First
Terrible.
one, I'm gonna go with Marcus Aurelius. That's
Okay.
1. Number 2, I feel like I gotta go with the baseball guy. And this one's tough because I want to pick my favorite player of all time, which is Craig Biggio, and he's alive. But if I want to go with somebody dead, I gotta go like Ty Cobb or Honus Wagner, or one of those guys. I don't know. One of those guys. I heard Ty Cobb was a prick. Did you know that he apparently used to like sharpen his spikes before games and would intentionally spike people?
I actually did hear something like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing with historical figures. You never know what's
true.
up.
Yeah.
Like they come to the table and just start cussing you out, and you're like,
Just a straight dick. Like
Yeah.
everybody hates him.
He starts throwing out every slur, every homophobic, racist slur you can think of. And it's like, okay, this guy's just a drunk dick. Like
Rick and Morty, Aberdolf Linkler.
Yeah, dude. So
like we thought his combination of leadership and like honesty or integrity would be like a good combo.
Instead, he just wrestles with his own morals or whatever.
He's just lame as hell.
All right. Well, then based off of that, my 3, I got to go Marcus Aurelius, Craig Biggio, and then going with a fake one. Give me Gandalf the Grey.
all right.
Give me a wizard.
Gandalf. There you go.
You shall not pass.
It's like
all right, Ryan.
Holding the dinner rolls.
That'd be good. That'd be such an old. You'd be like, all right, we fucking get it. That's your most famous line. Give me the rolls.
Pass the goddamn rolls.
Like now I'm thinking of like Paul Bunyan.
Like, how'd you get that ox, bro?
It'd be like,
Johnny Appleseed.
Cotton Eye Joe. Those are your 3: Cotton Eye Joe, Johnny Appleseed, and Paul Bunyan. That's a hell of a dinner.
That's called American folklore right there. But tell you what,
Pecos Bill.
Right?
Pecos Bill was real, I thought.
Crash Bandicoot.
Oh my God!
Lassoed a tornado.
Oh, there you go. I'll pick Goku or something like that. Vegeta.
Dude. All right.
Piccolo.
All right.
There's my 3 right there. Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo.
Yo, big Dragon Ball Z fan. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Hadouken. Oh wait, that's something else. Sorry.
All right, here we go. Tyler's turn.
Tyler, give it to us so we can move on.
I feel like Lou Gehrig would be a good one.
Before or after the Z's took over?
Why would you do it
Um,
after?
Let's take his spirit, that way he's like, I can talk about both ends
Fair enough.
Okay.
and like talk about those changes that took place. His
So
experience.
you want 2 versions of him at the table?
Yeah, the dead version.
Well, he's not what I bet.
He's just
Dude.
Hey, you could pick the Pillsbury Doughboy.
You could. That's another one.
It's a good one. You could tickle him.
be fucking taking all the croissants.
All right,
Oh,
who's your other one?
Yeah, no, Luke Gehrig. Let's go with Batman.
Okay. Which
Not
version?
Superman.
Which Batman?
Which one? What do I have to do? Like the Michael Keaton Batman?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, I'll take Heath Ledger Batman. Or Joker.
I was
Sorry.
like, that's
Heath
not-
Ledger Batman.
That'd be sick if he's like the Joker, but in a Batman suit.
Sometimes
Imposter
you just
Batman.
want to watch the world burn.
Interesting take.
All right, which Batman? I need to know.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale for sure.
Good. It's the best one.
Yeah, he does a good job. He does a good job on the business side too.
Yeah, he actually, you see him work as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's got Morgan Freeman on his side.
Yeah, how can you lose?
Bill Murray.
That's a good one, actually.
It's
Low
not
key.
bad. It
He's
really isn't
Murray.
bad. Let's go Jim Carrey.
Good.
All right.
Next.
Jim Carrey, Batman, and Luke Gehrig. Wow.
Moving on.
Moving on
Let's
over.
wrap this thing up.
Will Justin Fields or Russell Wilson start for the Steelers?
Justin Fields.
I got Fields for sure.
Yeah, I'll say Justin Fields. He's got a little more talent at the time. Russell's I thought he was doing pretty good with the Broncos, but I didn't think the Broncos team was good. Can't really put it all on Russell.
No.
I mean, he threw it to Sutton. Sutton did his job. What more can you ask?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, though. Their running game was so bad.
Well,
too.
I was going to say Javante sucked.
And then Melvin Gordon completely fell off the earth.
I think
Dude,
Russell Wilson's
like-
career went down the toilet after he did that Subway commercial.
Which one?
The one where it's that goofy one where he's like holding a sandwich. He's like, it's dangerous. Ooh. Oh, wait, no, that's too dangerous. The most cringy, awkward commercial from an athlete I've ever seen.
It's Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah, I know, dude, it's so
it's
funny.
like Carlton Banks and Will Smith, like quarterback and wide receiver. That was pretty much Cortland Sutton. He was Will Smith. Russell Wilson was Carlton Banks.
Who's Chris Rock?
Chris Rock.
Well, yeah, Will Smith smacked the shit out of him. So
Oh.
who did?
Fucking Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Fields got a little more athleticism there. He's going to bring some different dynamics to that team. Maybe a run for over 40 yards for once. How
They can
sportsmanlike should extreme sports be?
I think it's with any sport that there should be a level of sportsmanship. I mean, you look at best example I could think of that relates to extreme sports that's kind of more of a mainstream sport is hockey. You see those guys full on fight. Okay.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then after they fight, a lot of the times there's still a mutual respect between the guys.
Right.
So
Yeah, and they move on to the next game. They're not fighting the next game. They
Yeah.
get it out. Rinse and
And
repeat.
there's still that respect, even if you don't like the guy. Like even in regular like NASCAR or F1 too, there's definitely guys that don't like each other and they get into altercations on the track after a race. Somebody bumped somebody made somebody crash, but at the end of the day, they're like, I respect him as a competitor, even if I don't fucking like him,
Yeah.
So that's a sort of sportsmanship that, I mean, that's as far as I think it should go. It's all uber competitive people doing this stuff. So
Yeah. I'm with you. it shouldn't be like disrespect all the time, but there should be some intensity, but also mutual respect is like, hey, we're at the same level. We're competing. We're trying to win.
Yeah.
Do what you do. Don't get hurt. Like, we're not trying to hurt each other over here.
And you got to keep it like an even playing field, keep it fair, because some people might think of it as strategy. If you mention hockey or like baseball, some people just being players and or take them out, start fighting at the start of the whistle, and you're like, what was the point of hurting my player at the beginning of the?
Yeah.
And then
send them a message.
Yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose of my best against your best.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You don't want to win when you're hampered down. The other team doesn't have their best talent out there.
You're like trying to hurt somebody to have an upper hand. It's not, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Now, equipment recommendations for this topic for Austin Forkner's crash. Mine would be chest protector. I don't think he was wearing one. Could potentially save a scapula. Not sure how that absorbs impact from hitting the ground and saving the L3, L4, but it'll do something. It'll help you out a little bit. And I know some other racers and freestyle guys are like, yeah, I used to not wear a chest protector, but now I always wear one, whether they get handlebar to the chest or who knows.
Do they need like bulletproof vests or something?
But some of them are actually built with what is that material called?
Like carbon fiber stuff?
Yeah, carbon fiber.
You're talking about the bulletproof stuff?
Yeah, thought of it and lost it.
Ryan, what's yours?
I'm kind of surprised he didn't have a vest on. I mean, I would say boots for this one's
Kevlar. Sorry.
Kevlar, yeah.
Kevlar boots.
Kevlar boots.
Might as well. Kevlar gloves, boots.
Kevlar
helmets.
pants.
Am I saying it right? Kevlar with a P?
Kev.
Like
Kevin Lar.
Yes.
Good pair of boots is always good, especially for motocross.
My recommendation was one of those neck braces that they put on. They kind of put on up here or whatever. They say it restricts movement and some guys don't like it, but I think it really helps prevent the compression of the spine that we saw in this injury. So that's mine. That's what I got.
Yeah, no, that's a good one too. I was thinking about that. Now we got fitness goals and winners from last podcast's fitness competition.
All right, boys, be honest. Be honest. How many squats did we do?
We count single leg too?
You didn't say that, so no.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, actually, no.
So take all of that away from your total. My total was 50.
Attaboy.
50 squats, baby.
Tyler.
Like intentional.
Intentional. Gotcha.
Yeah, intentional.
I'm not shooting over this. Probably about 600. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was, it's funny. I was right at 601. So.
Oh my gosh.
No, I did
600 and a half.
Yeah. No, I did 100. And that was all within like the first couple days. And then I forgot. And then I was like, yeah.
I gotcha. When I do a lot of travel, I actually do a lot of body weight squats. Like the other day, I actually set a timer. It was like for a minute, I'll do body weight squats. For a minute, I'll do push-ups.
Well, you won this one.
Minute.
All right. Well, I wrote it down. Tyler wins this first round. Tyler's up 1-0. So next 2 weeks.
Let's go.
What's the next one? You won, so you pick what's the next thing.
Dang it.
Mountain climber time.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Mountain climbers for time. If you ever tried 2 minutes straight of mountain climbers, it's terrible.
Yeah, I hate those. But okay,
So
next
try and
week.
do it.
Mountain
So I just need to get 2 minutes.
climber time. No, it's not.
2 minutes, 2 minutes
It's
straight, no stopping.
Is it just how long we could do it, or total time that we do it over the next 2 weeks?
Total time over 2 weeks.
Total time. Okay, that's what I thought. All right.
Or we
Mountain
could do
climber
how long
times.
we could do it. That would be
No.
miserable.
Let's make it a minimum that we have to get to, so everybody's doing it. What's the minimum that we have to do? An hour?
That's a lot.
Over 2
An
weeks?
hour?
An hour of mountain climbers in 2 weeks?
30 minutes minimum that we
You
all
just
have
said
to
2 minutes was hard.
No,
All right.
2 minutes straight.
All right, fine. Minimum.
Like no break.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
We'll keep it short. Let's do a minimum of 10 minutes total for the 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
And if you don't get the minimum, what's the punishment?
Forehead tattoo.
Okay. No. Punishment is TBD. We will come back to that at a
TBD.
later time.
All right. Quote of the day
hear
by
it.
our brave 27th president of the United States, William Howard Taft, bathtub guy.
Bathtub guy.
Bathtub guy. Substantial progress toward better things can rarely be taken without developing new evils requiring new remedies.
Ballin'.
That dude's
How
deep.
long do you think it took him to write that?
I have no idea.
2 weeks.
But I was looking through his quotes. Some of them are hilarious. It's like, I can't stand listening to other people. I hate politics. I'm like, here we go.
That's a good one.
And another one was like, I don't buy into religion. It's indifferent to me. I don't like listening to other people's opinions. And I'm like, yeah, Lee.
Yeah, that's why he just talks to himself. That's all he does. That's how he gets these quotes, because he just talks to himself because he's self-absorbed.
And a lot of it was other things like, I think people just like to talk and I'm tired of listening. And I'm like,
bro, you like to talk.
it was interesting ones. I thought that was the best one though.
Gotcha.
So with any new endeavor comes new evils that we have to attack.
Got it. We can do that. Well, and that reminded me, since you did a quote of the day, I forgot to say my quote that I wanted to last time for Kevin. So
Too bad.
I'm just gonna add it now.
Yeah.
I'm adding it now. It was at the end of it, whenever it was just near the end of the documentary, and the quote is, "It's been said that the brave don't live forever, but the cautious don't live at all."
That's a good one. Yeah,
I think
that's a good one.
that's a perfect quote for extreme sports in general, or anybody who's an adrenaline junkie kind of deal, doing crazy stuff, you know. I think
Yeah,
that
no
really
doubt.
speaks volumes to that kind of lifestyle that these people choose.
Go get your heart rate up.
Ooh.
Yay.
And to wrap this up, so no listener questions because we're working on those guys. But if you are listening and you do have a question, feel free to leave us a comment on an Instagram post on one of our clips, or DM us your question. And who knows, maybe we'll say it live. We'll see.
Drop this shit, homie.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add? Yeah, if you're interested in us, hit the links down below. Check out our socials. Follow us, ask us questions, do whatever you want to do, and check us out over at wavygang.com. Appreciate
Instagram,
you guys.
TikTok, Twitter, or X,
Apple
We're out there.
Podcasts,
Spotify,
YouTube, all the good stuff. We'll post the links down below if you guys
YouTube.
want to check out our personal stuff too. Next episode, we're going to do our best once we post this to get on a consistent schedule and get it within 2 weeks. Hopefully we've worked out the kinks from the first one and we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Personal space.
Yeah.
Personal space in my personal space.
Personal space.
I don't even care about this skin in my personal space. And on that,
Bird,
Good
bird,
night.
I'm glad you
bird,
picked
bird,
up on that.
bird.
good night. Done.